when we have a set of crosstabs that we're about to show you that aggregate the last 5 nights of data. And here they are, almost 1,800 U.S. likely voters. And again, for the 4th week in a row, Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris by 2 points, 49% to 47%. And this is a stunning performance for Donald Trump, who in no other election cycle ever even got close to 49%. And what's crazy is how stable the internal demographics now are starting to look, all of them but Hispanic voters, but we're going to get to that. Donald Trump has been winning men by just about upper single digits every single time, 51 to 44 here, down slightly among women by 4 points, roughly tied with 18 to 39-year-olds. But Trump is winning big.
All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes back at your service. I appreciate you joining me today. Did you hear that? 49% are now supporting Donald Trump in this latest poll. That is a figure that Rasmussen has never seen before with Donald Trump. So that is excellent news for the Trump campaign. I want to extend a quick welcome to all my free-minded friends. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Today, we're going to be asking a very simple question. What if Donald Trump loses Arizona? Is he likely to win the election? Is he likely to lose as a result? We're going to dive into that in just a second. I want to make a quick point. You probably hear in the mainstream legacy media, they keep having this particular narrative that, hey, Donald Trump's going to lose. There's no reason to vote. You might as well stay home. It's all over. The next president's going to be Kamala Harris. And of course, my friends, that is a false narrative. And I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the realclearpolling.com that basically takes all of the current surveys, the current polling numbers, and it essentially gives us a report as to how each candidate is doing at this particular stage in the race. Now, what is interesting as of right now is, as always, you see these reports, except for Rasmussen that we just talked about, which is number 3 on this list right here. They're all saying effectively that Kamala Harris is ahead and that she's winning. Again, remember, that's not necessarily the truth. We know very well all the way back from 2016 and even in 2020, the polling clearly underestimates Donald Trump's performance. And it doesn't underestimate it in a small way. It underestimates it in a huge way, to borrow a word from Donald Trump. The thing I want you to pay attention to in this particular poll is, let's take a peek right here at this section that says, on this day in history, October 4th, 2020, which is the making of this video on October 4th, 2024. But back in 2020, Joe Biden on this day was ahead 8.1 percentage points. Even back in 2016, Hillary Clinton was ahead 3.8%. Now, Donald Trump won in 2016. He narrowly lost in 2020. But look at the percentages. 3.8% up for Hillary Clinton, just like they're trying to show for Kamala Harris on this particular day at this point in the election. And according to this particular graph, we see that Harris is reported to be up 2.2%. Remember, Hillary Clinton was higher than that at 3.8%. So this is fantastic news for Donald Trump. Don't believe for one second that Donald Trump somehow has already lost this race, because, my friends, that's just simply not true. That is the narrative that this legacy media, the woke legacy media, wants you to believe. Don't believe it. Get out and vote, and everything is going to be just fine. Okay, so we see the next screen that shows more of the latest polls broken down even more. We see, as of Thursday, October 3rd, Michigan has a poll, Trump versus Harris. Trump is up 1% in Michigan. Now, remember, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania is considered what they call the big blue wall. Now, Minnesota is pretty well always going to be Democratic. Even the great Ronald Reagan could never win Minnesota. Even during his re-election campaign against Walter Mondale, Ronald Reagan won all 49 states with the exception, of course, of Minnesota. We can see here that Ohio has Trump versus Harris. You have Trump up 7 percentage points in this particular poll. That is no small number. That's a big number right there. North Carolina, Trump versus Harris is what they consider a tie. And of course, they have on a national poll, again, we have Rasmussen reports up 2 percentage points for Donald Trump. Now, what you're looking on the screen is what we're going to talk about today, which is the meat of today's discussion. And that is simply what happens if President Donald Trump does not win Arizona. Well, we're going to take a look at it right now. You see the entire country broken down by the Electoral College map. And remember, it's not a popular vote in the United States that chooses the next president of the United States. It's the Electoral College. It's the way our founding fathers set it up. And the reason they set it up this way is they did not want basically a majority rule as far as the president of the United States. They wanted a candidate that is what we would best call a regional candidate. They wanted a candidate that appealed best to the entire nation instead of just one area of the country like California and or New York, for example. Of course, the states in red here are the states that Donald Trump, the Republicans, are very likely to win, and the same with the darker purple color. And if I get the colors wrong, I have to tell you I'm colorblind, but we get the idea here. The darker colors, I believe it's purple, is representative of what Kamala Harris should win in the upcoming election. This lighter shade of color here is essentially what they have determined to be the toss-up states for this year's election. I don't necessarily agree that these states are going to be a toss-up, but that's what the legacy media is telling us, and we'll just have to go with that. Let's go ahead and let's take a best case guess as to exactly how this should turn out. Now, they keep saying North Carolina, for example, is what they call a battleground state. I don't believe that. And the reason I don't believe that is the polling is not showing that, number one. And number two, Donald Trump won North Carolina in 2016 and in 2020. And I just really have a hard time believing that Donald Trump is going to lose that state, especially considering the fact with this new hurricane that just went through that particular area of the country. A lot of people are very upset at the federal government, of course, ran by the Democrats, and their absolute failure to take care of the people in this area of the country. So at any rate, for this discussion, let's go ahead and shade that as a win by Donald Trump. Same thing with Georgia. I lived in Georgia for years. I think what happened in 2020 was essentially some type of COVID anomaly. Remember, Donald Trump only lost that state with around 11,500 votes. I think that is a hurdle they can easily overcome, especially with Donald Trump and the very popular governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, essentially reconciling between the two of them, and I think everything is going to be fine in that state. But we'll talk about it just in case something else happens. But we're going to go ahead and color it for Donald Trump as of right now. Now, over here in Nevada, we're going to have to just go ahead and assume that Donald Trump's not going to win Nevada. And there is a lot of polling showing that Donald Trump may very well win Nevada. We're going to go ahead and say he does not win it because he did not win it in 2020, and he did not even win it back in 2016. So we're just going to go ahead and give that to the Democrats. Now, Arizona is kind of a mixed bag. Donald Trump did win it in 2016, but did not win it in 2020. So this, of course, is what we're going to talk about today. So let's just leave that uncolored right now. Moving on. We have Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are the three main states, at least what I consider the main states, and what they call the so-called blue wall. This is who's going to determine who is the next president of the United States. Before we color this in, take a look. The Democrats currently, according to this projection, has 232 electoral college votes, where the Republicans have 251. Remember, it takes 270 to claim the presidency of the United States. So let's go ahead and let's play this out and see how this works. So we're going to go ahead and say that Kamala Harris wins Arizona. That's going to bring her to 232 electoral college votes, and the Republicans, with this type of projection in mind, 262. Here's what it boils down to. You're going to see why Pennsylvania is so important. Let's just say Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania. Boom, 281. Arizona is not going to matter one way or the other if things turn out the way that I have it projected. Let's go ahead and color the rest in for Kamala Harris, and let's get a full snapshot of this. Again, the Democrats, Kamala Harris, 257, Donald Trump, 281. Fantastic victory for him and the Republicans if this is exactly what ends up happening. And remember, a lot of the polling coming out of Michigan right now shows that Donald Trump is actually poised to win Michigan and perhaps Wisconsin. Kamala Harris effectively has no path to the presidency without winning each one of these deep blue states. You want to spice things up? Think about this. The great state of Virginia, which of course has a Republican governor, and Glenn Youngkin, there is polling out of that area right now that is showing it is very competitive. I would argue it is actually what we can call a battleground state. This state is clearly in play, and I think Donald Trump has a good chance of winning Virginia. And if Donald Trump wins Virginia, it's all over. Kamala Harris does not have a prayer to win the election. Now, let's take a look at another scenario. Let's just go ahead and pretend that Donald Trump actually loses Georgia in this particular illustration, this example that we're going over, and he loses Arizona, as we've been discussing so far. Now you have 273 for the Democrats and you have 265 for the Republicans. In this case, of course, Kamala Harris would win. What if Donald Trump is actually able to pick off Wisconsin? Boom. Donald Trump is president of the United States. Isn't that interesting? This is potentially going to be a very close race. At least that's what the polls are telling us. That's what history has shown us. And we'll just have to see how this actually pans out. So in this last example, let's go ahead and assume, again, Donald Trump loses Arizona. He loses Nevada, as I have projected that he's going to lose, but he wins Georgia. At the same time, we're going to say Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, only one of the three states in the so-called blue wall. So we give the 19 Electoral College votes to Donald Trump. We have Michigan and Wisconsin going to Kamala Harris. In this scenario, you still have Donald Trump as president of the United States, even without Arizona, at 270 versus 268. It's close in the Electoral College, but 270 is a win, whether it's by 2 points or more than 2 points. I have been talking for quite some time on just how important Pennsylvania is, and that's the reason why you see both candidates repeatedly return to that state, in addition to the fact that Kamala Harris has previously promised to ban fracking many times on recorded video, and of course now she's changed her tune, saying, no, I won't ban fracking. What she didn't say is, not only will I not ban it, but I'll go ahead and regulate the living you-know-what out of it, which is a de facto banning. Frankly, folks, if we believe the words coming out of her mouth, we got no one to blame but ourselves. What I predict is going to happen is that Pennsylvania is definitely going to turn red and vote for Donald Trump. I believe that fracking issue is definitely going to be a big problem for Kamala Harris to overcome. And that is the reason why you see her adopting the same strategy that her boss, Joe Biden, did back in 2020, which is effectively stay in the basement. Don't grant any interviews. Just keep quiet and hope to run out the clock to get to the beginning of November to Election Day. And she's hoping somehow, some way she can skirt by. Somehow, some way she can skirt by. Folks, it's very important. This election is going to probably be one of the most consequential elections in our lifetime. We need to have some difficult, perhaps very difficult conversations with our family, friends, our loved ones. We all need to make sure we take someone with us to the polls so that we can all vote. Every single vote counts. We must make sure that people that are indoctrinated, folks that have essentially the wrong information in their mind, or somehow they're buying into this love and joy campaign of Kamala Harris. We need to make sure that they are woken up. And I like to call it a free mind. They need to achieve that free mind and think for themselves, because I'm telling you, if Kamala Harris gets into office, things are going to go from bad to worse. Imagine waking up after Election Day and Kamala Harris is going to be the next president of the United States. We cannot allow that to happen. God has granted us this beautiful, great country, and we all must do our part to get out and get to the polls and vote. Do not believe the narrative by the so-called legacy media that essentially everything is all sewn up. Kamala Harris is going to win. You might as well stay home. Don't believe that, folks. That's not true. It's absolutely not true. They're trying to make you think it's all over. It's not. It's not over till it's over. And even if for some reason Donald Trump ends up losing, hey, you get out and you vote, you bring a friend or two with you, you spread messages like this by sharing it with your family and friends. At that point, you can say, hey, I did everything I could do to make a difference, and you will at that point have a clean conscience. My friends, I think this great country of ours that I am very happy to be a proud of. I am definitely a Very proud American. I bleed red, white, and blue. I can assure you of this. I'm telling you, things are going to be fine one way or the other, but we can't take a chance on not doing our civic duty and getting out and vote. It is just too important this year. Definitely appreciate you joining me today. It's always a pleasure to have a moment to speak with you. If you have any questions, comments, please put them in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. You're still with me, might as well hit the thumbs up button. Help the algorithm, help promote this video. Like to always say, my friends, keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.